I thought I might like to call this Give Yourself a Power Recycle. And the reason for that is that I had a thing that happened to me a little while ago when my computer wouldn't work. So I called up the computer embryos, as I'll call them, the kids down at the shop, and said, how am I going to fix this? And they said, look, Elle, the first thing we want you to do is find a little button, and it's a little circle, and it's got a circle inside it with a little line on it. We want you to press that and hold it for 3 seconds. Your computer will turn off. Then press it again and hold it for a couple of seconds, and your computer will come back on. I went, right. So I'm turning it off and then on again. They said, yeah, a power recycle. And I went, oh my goodness, you've got a name for everything you kids, haven't you? So apparently that's what it's called. When you turn your computer off and on again, it's a power recycle. Now, one of the things that we know that when we do a power recycle, sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get it all going, doesn't it? And we've been off for a little while. And I think that you guys have actually been way more off than we have in Australia. I'm in a part of Queensland that we didn't really get locked down at all. We've got, things happen, but we've been able to practice the whole time. So what I want you to think about is that sometimes the rebooting process can take a little bit of time. And I want to talk about today about how we can help ourselves with that. So I've got a whole lot of power tips for you. And the other thing is because when I first started in practice, that was in the 90s, and we used to have little stickers that we'd give out to the kids, and it would say, power on, thanks chiropractic. And they were as cheesy as anything, but the kids loved them, and it became our little slogan, if you like. So I thought I might talk a little bit about power on. So Connor, you mentioned that people, things that people might be fearful of or scared of at the moment is that our practice members won't have enough money to come in. They'll be scared to come in, or we don't have a way of marketing to our new people. And like I said, Naomi's going to talk a little bit about that. But this stuff isn't new. This has been with us in chiropractic forever. We are always in competition for the dollar. People are always frightened of us. You just have to Google, can you trust a chiropractor? And I don't know, what do you get to? Page 8 before you get a yes. So this is not new stuff. And so what we want to talk about is how does that affect us right now? Why is it different? And why are we more fearful of this stuff than we've ever been before? So, because it's the time of corona. And just as a definition, corona is 2 things: a gaseous envelope around a planet that gives it its pearly glow, or it's something resembling a crown. So I've got mine with me today. So I'm going to put my little corona on for this, because I thought I'm nothing if not quite royal in my ways and talking about power. So the first thing, the power tips that I want to give you, I've got the first 5 and they're all about you. So this is going to be fun because it's all about you. So power tip number 1, heal thyself. I think it's in the Bible. And what I want you to think about with this is think about what's come up for you over this last corona time. For us in Australia, it's been 8 weeks. What challenges have you had, but also what blessings? Because as Dean Martini will always tell us, is that for every challenge, there's a blessing that's of equal value. So I want you to start to think about what challenges and what blessings, and acknowledge both of them, because they are both there, okay? And then I want you to look beneath that and start to think about why you notice those things. So for example, if during this lockdown time you're really worried about money, then that is probably one of your quite high values. If what you're really worried about was connection, then that's probably one of your really high values, because that's what we do. We live to our values. So start to think about that. I'm going to talk about a little bit and why in a little minute. The other thing that I want you to think about is that if we have an unloved trait, it becomes the thing that rules us. So I want you to start to look at that a little bit closely, especially if we're starting to look at the people around us. Anything that's triggering you in someone else, mirror, mirror, it's usually something you've got within yourself. So especially when we're thinking about our practice members, if we're saying things like, oh, they're saying they can't afford to come in, it may well be that we're doing that somewhere else in our life. So just have a look at that mirroring. And, as we all know, we're usually the most, outraged when we get caught out on that sort of stuff. So just start to have a little bit of a think of that. Okay, so that's power tip 1. Power tip 2 is that this can be really tiring. Okay, at the moment, our brain needs to rewire. And we know from Hebb's law, that neurons that fire together wire together. So the more, right? So it's okay if this is tiring. It's okay if you don't necessarily feel the same levels of vibrancy all day and all night like you used to. So start to think about what you can do to support yourself in that. Get your spine checked so that you can have that reorganization of your prefrontal cortex. Meditate, sit quietly and have a cup of tea. Think nothing. Daydream, make some time for that. Move your body, and maybe even move your body to the point of not only to encode this new way, because we know that that's going to happen with, if we cross crawl, but also maybe even move your body to the point of endorphin release, which means probably getting to that point of pain, so that we can start to feel that we're more alive again. But also remember that routine is going to be really important, because we know that from Charles Duhigg's work that about 60% of what we do every day is routine. And while we've been off, then things might have been a little bit different. We might not have had our routine. So this will calm and soothe our brain and actually give us more energy. All right, so that's power tip 2. Power tip 3 is to acknowledge what you've been feeling. Okay, so the stages of grief, go from denial all the way through to acceptance. Acknowledge where you're at with that and allow yourself the time and space. If you're still in anger, that's okay. This is not a race. And as you're allowing it for yourself, allow it for others too. Give others the time and space to do it in their time, because, this is not a competition, right? Power tip 4. It's now time to look at your purpose. So why are you doing this? Why do you even want to get back into practice? So the way the model of, I suppose, life works, using the innate model from Mark Postles, we have purpose is up this frontal area, and we have policy, procedure, and product. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4 like that when we're looking at the brain. So when we were thinking about our values that we noticed about ourselves when we were back in lockdown, they're the things that would help us to actually create our purpose statement. So we can have a personal purpose statement, or we can have a purpose statement for our practice, but it's our values that will actually determine what that is. Then we have back here our outcomes. So that's the things, they're our policies. So they're the things that we want to, the rules that we want to run by, and they can be personal rules. And then we have our procedures, and that's how we do our do. And then we have our product, and that's where we get to at the end. So this is actually really important to know that most problems, maybe even all, I don't know if I should say all, but most problems come from a breakdown between policy and procedure. So it's quite primitive. It's back here. So, I'll give you an example. In a relationship, you might say that our policy is that we're monogamous, and then the procedure is don't go around sleeping with anyone else, right? So if we have a breakdown between that policy and procedure, there's probably going to be a little bit of fallout. And that might mean that our end product will be a little bit different. We might not stay together, for example. And so we see this all the time in interpersonal relationships, but we also see it in our practices. So I want you to start to think about that idea that it's really cool to have a purpose statement, because that's the filter that everything comes through. And then that's how we develop our policies, our procedures, and get to where we want to get to. Okay, so if you don't have a purpose statement, I'm always harping on about it, because I think it's really, really important that you start to actually know why you do what you do, so that you can actually, and it's actually another way of calming your farm and calming your brain, because if things don't go through that purpose statement, then you don't have to do them. So it's super easy, okay? It makes life really easy. And while we're thinking about this, this could be a really cool time to think about if you've been doing ABC, and I don't mean ABC technique, I mean anything but chiropractic in your practice. So if you've been doing a lot of ABC, this could be a really cool time to piss off some of those A's and some of those B's and get back to the C's. This could be a really cool time to actually start to get very clean and very clear about what chiropractic means to you, and ditch some of the other stuff. Maybe that's just a suggestion by me. And Joe Strauss always said that we were going to be refined by fire, didn't we? And this is not a fire. We just got a Billy Ray Cyrus instead of a fire. But who knew it was going to be like this? But here's a chance, right? This is a chance to actually come back bigger and better and stronger. That's what fires do. So in a nutshell, what we want to do is we want to get clear. We want to profess, because we're a profession, right? We want to speak out. We want to repeat that, and we want to encode it in our brains. We want you to get close to what you want. You know that law of proximity? If you get close to the things that you want. So if your practice isn't where you want it to be right now, have a look around and see who's got that, and go and get close to them. Rub up against it if you can. That's a really cool way of actually starting to get closer to the way you think you want things to be. Be grateful for what you do have already, because you can't go to that next step until you actually have gratitude for where you're at. Support others, and then also tell them how you want to be supported. Because if we don't speak out and say how others can support us, then sometimes we don't get support. All right. So that's our sort of the summing up. And then there's one last power tip for us, and that's to forgive yourself. And I'm talking about forgive yourself for what you didn't do during ISO. All right. Either forgive yourself or let it go. So I haven't come, out with, I thought I might have had rock hard abs and might have gotten rid of the old bye-bye muscles before I got out of isolation, and that hasn't happened. And I'm just going to forgive myself and say, oh, well, I did do the things that were important because I live true to my values, right? So whatever you did during isolation is what's really important to you. So actually let go of all of that other stuff, right? So how we do one thing is how we do all things. We know that. So if during ISO you've been, and over this next little bit, if you're doing fear, then you're probably going to do fear in your practice. And we want to start to have a look at that, because that is not our role when we're dealing with our practice members. Our role is actually the opposite of that. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Okay. So they're the 5 power tips for you. And now we're going to talk about the power tips for them, for our practice members, right? So there's a whole lot of them, but they're not quite as long. So I'll go through them now super fast. So number 1 is to support them personally. Okay. Allow your practice members space to be however they are. Some of them might be, jumping out of their skin to get back into your office. They might be relaxed. They might be fearful. They might be crying. They might be overwhelmed. Allow them to be however they are. And that was one of the big things that happened for me, because I didn't actually stop being in practice at all, but people still went through this whole range of different emotions. And it was really important to hold space for them and allow them to do whatever it was that they were doing, because our job is to soothe those sympathetics, because we know they don't heal well when they're in sympathetic overdrive, and we know that they don't learn well. They can't take in new information. Okay. So our job is to actually pace and lead. And that stairway to heaven thing, where, if we're up the top of the stairway and we're yelling down at them, come up here, the view's fantastic. And they're down at the bottom just going, I've just got a bloody headache. So we've got to go down those stairs, sit on the step with them, hold their hand, say, it's actually okay, listen, and pace and lead, get in rapport, go up a step. Pace and lead, go up another step. Because if we get out of rapport, then we can't lead anywhere. Okay? So power tip 2 for practice members is be deliberate with your word choices. So we all know about the chiropractic lexicon. There's been a lot written about subluxation, using the word patient versus practice member, clinic versus office, those kind of things, right? So that's the chiropractic lexicon. But now we've got the corona lexicon. I would suggest that we maybe be very careful on how we use that. I'm not saying COVID or COVID-19 at all, because I think that that's giving this thing a lot more credence than maybe it deserves. And so in Australia, we're calling it the Rona. And so you might want to call it Corona like this. That's quite lovely. Or the Rona. But remember that there's a lot of new terminology. There's pivot, and there's all these other different things that are being bandied about. We don't want to use the warlike terminology. We want to use the words like support and nourish and care for and honour yourself and freedom and do it your way and you've got this and be in your own power. We want to start to use some of that language with our practice members. I would maybe say not safe, because safe has been one that's, everyone's saying stay safe out there as if it's, so terrifying. So maybe some of these things about security and nourishment. Because now power trip tip 3, power trip, I keep saying that. Is this a Freudian slip or what, right? Power trip, Alison's on here, isn't she? Now she's on a rant. Number 3 is to empower them. Okay. And I had a little lady come in the other day. She hasn't been in for 8 weeks because she's had a kidney transplant, and she's been on, a whole bunch of different immunosuppressant meds. And when she came in, I said, okay, so these are the things that we're doing now. So I'm not in PPE. I'm just in these clothes, but I am washing my hands a lot, and we've got, whatever's the recommendations for us in Australia. And I said, this is what we're doing. Tell me what else you would like me to do to support you so that you can feel relaxed when you're in here. She said, oh no, I trust you, whatever you say. No. That is not what we're doing here. I said to her, you have a brain and an ability to evaluate the information just as well as anyone else. You're not to give me your power and say whatever you say, doc. what we're doing here is that you're going to make the choices. And so we sat down and we talked about what it is that she would like to have in this office, because I want her, and people are going to need to have their autonomy and their body autonomy in particular as we go through this next bit. So we're not letting Bev get away with that kind of stuff and giving away her power, because we need to remind our practice members of their innate intelligence. So, their innate intelligence have been running them since they were born. Every time they've cut their hand, they've grown back skin cells and not eyeballs. So that stuff's been running their lives forever. So let's start to remind them of that, so we can work together for their greater good, but not the greater good. And I think we want to be really careful of that too, because I think that in Australia, they keep on saying, oh, we're all in this together. And to me, that just sounds like we're all up shit creek. So I think we want to start to talk about, let's not be all in this together. Let's work for your greater good, whatever that is. Okay. So power tip 4 for your practice members is get them to create their own narrative. And I listened to a podcast the other day with an author, Michael Lewis, and he was talking about the stories that we tell ourselves. And one of the things, I'm not going to read out the whole quote, but one of the things that he said that we all, if you listen to people, you'll find out there are patterns in the way they talk about themselves. Like some people are always the victim and others are always the smart person or the hero or whatever it is. And there's all these different versions of it. But he said that you've got to be very careful about how you tell these stories, because they start to become you. And you are, in the way you craft your narrative, crafting your character. And so he decided, I'm going to adopt as my narrative that I'm the happiest person that anybody knows. And he says, and it's amazing how happy inducing that is. So what I would love is that you start to notice the narratives that your practice members are running, and especially the disempowering ones, and maybe call them on it if they're running some of those really less than powerful narratives for themselves. Okay. So power tip 5 is that just purely that, remind them that they're more powerful than they've ever been permitted to believe. And I think that that's a beautiful quote. I love that one. Power tip 6 is to keep everything really, really simple. Okay, there's so much going on out there, and there's all of these we're creating all these new pathways. So look at your initial consult and your report of findings, and maybe think about what's the minimum amount of information that you can give them so that they're safe and ready to start. So maybe we can start to cull off some of the stuff. Maybe we can talk a little less and actually just get these people started, because we know that what happens once they're adjusted, once they're less subluxated, their prefrontal cortex is going to completely change. They're going to be better able to reorganize. Their executive function is going to be better. So then we can then start to drip feed them the information that they need to make lifetime choices about their healthcare. But let's just get them started. Okay. Power tip 7, one of the things we've been doing in our office is we've been handing out little Rona packs. I was calling them Corona packs at the start, but everyone was expecting beer because, Australia. And so we're now calling them Rona packs, and all that's in it is a tea bag, nice little, sealed one, a bit of chocolate, and a little essential oil, and they change every week, and some stuff for them to do. So it's just got reminders of, they've got this, that their immune system's amazing, that and lots of little tips and tricks that they can do. They're just a page. And if anybody's interested, just, drop me a line. I've done 8 weeks worth of them. You're very welcome to have them. But so we just gave those out to everyone, because what that's done is it's given them something to take home so that they can, again, increase their power. Okay. So easy stuff. Power tip number 8 is don't be crazy. All right. Now, I know we're chiropractors and we're already a bit crazy, and there's an amazing temptation to want to get crazier and tell them about all the, I don't want to say conspiracy theories, but all the theories we might have about this. Let's maybe not be too crazy, because let's pace and lead our people. Remember, we must get in rapport first, and then we might be able to lead them some new ideas about health and dis-ease. But let's first be a safe place for our people to land before we start going off with our crazy. Maybe that might be the conversation for, the so-called second wave or something. What's coming next? So power tip 9 for your practice members is remember that people are doers. People love to do shit. You know how you get those phone calls from practice members saying, oh, my kid's fevering, what do I do? Well, nothing. Don't do anything. You let the kid fever and you make sure he's hydrated and, just let innate intelligence do its thing, but people want to do stuff. So what I'm doing at the moment is I'm giving everyone homework. And so, you know, at the end of the visit where I finish off with cervicals, and so I'm just finishing off doing a little cranial, and I give them like the summary. Okay, so this happened today and we found this, and you're on track, and you schedule at the moment it's twice a week, you know, so I give them the little summary, and I say, and I'm going to give you some homework. What I want you to do when you leave here is, and it might be drink some water, go for a walk, don't stare at a flower, take 5 minutes to drink your cup of tea and look through your owner pack, whatever it is. Give them homework, because people want to do. And this is their opportunity to shine with that, right? To actually go and do their homework. The other thing that they might want to do, if you want to give your practice members something to do, is to remind them the ways that they can support other local businesses. And so we've got a whole thing going on in our community at the moment. We're doing this little thing going, love local. And I started it because I like doing that. And so we're doing this little love local thing, so that we're buying gift vouchers for businesses that aren't operational right now. We're doing a whole bunch of stuff so that we can actually just start to create, we're a tourist community, we're a holiday place, Noosa. And so we want to start to create that sense so that the locals are actually supporting locals. So that's something they can do. So get your practice members an opportunity to do that. Then we're nearly there. Power tip number 10, it's that get them reflecting. Start to ask your practice members, what were the biggest challenges, and what were the biggest, well, the best and worst really. What are things that they loved and hated about this time? Because that'll tell you a lot. It'll tell you a lot about their values. So that'll be useful in your conversation, so that you can always speak to your practice members' values, so you can give them information that's meaningful to them. The other thing is it'll actually help them to decompress. It's almost doing like a little mini DeMartini collapse process in allowing them to see both sides of the equation. So, because we can never move on until we've actually acknowledged both sides. Power tip 11 is give really, really clear recommendations. Okay. Even if we don't know what's going on next. We don't even know if we're going to be here next week. All right. With our practices, with all these, you know, different recommendations, let's not engage in maybes. We would want to make sure that everyone's on a schedule. We want to make sure, we want to say things like, I'll be here, I've got you, all of those kind of things. And we want to remind our practice members of the big picture, okay? So that we're here for connection and then reconnection, reconnecting man the physical with man the spiritual. So we want to remind them of that big picture as well, but very, very clearly, okay? And the last one for your practice members, power tip number 12, is that remember that people all want to be part of something. They want to be part of something bigger than themselves. And so this is an opportunity for you to help them be part of your tribe. So you might want to do something like start a VIP Facebook group. You might want, I know that we can't necessarily do in-office events right now, but we might not want to start doing some things like maybe have a Zoom conference. Maybe you want to start a book club. I don't know, whatever it is that you love to do. It doesn't have to necessarily be full-on chiropractic related. It's about building community, because I think at the moment that's what people are wanting and they want more of. That's probably the thing that they've missed. And I know that with our Chicks Who Click, when we asked them some questions the other day, what have they missed most of all and what do they want from us next? It's that connection. People that I mean, Brent will tell you all about what, you know, it's what people love and it's what they want more of, right? So we can be the people who are the beacons for that. So finally, on the rebuilding side of things, the one thing that I want you to know is that it's really important to see just that one person who's in front of you, okay? Not the 200 who aren't, or the 500 or whatever your practice used to be. Just see that one person, because as you know, I mean, what's that saying? Look after the pennies and the pounds look after themselves. A practice of 500 a week is composed of all the ones, all of those ones. So make sure that you connect, be grateful for, and help reconnect that person who's in front of you. Now, with the rebuilding, if your practice isn't what it once was, you've done it before and you can do it again. And in fact, because of what we know from Hebb's law, we've already got those connections. We've already got those pathways, and the more, the more, the more. So Hebb's law says that this time it'll actually be faster than it was last time. So what we've got here is an opportunity. It might have felt like sometimes in practice, in coaching, we see that people say they feel like it's a bit of a house of cards. They're scared that their practice could all come crashing down at any moment. And so now we've got, there might have been a culling off, there might have been a bit of a burn down, but now we've got an opportunity to have a really secure foundation, because we know that things always come back better, you know. my surname's Asher. We rise from the ashes, don't we? So, and we know, I know, right? It's not even spelt the right way, but I don't care. I'm going to use puns if I want. I can see you laughing, partner. So you think I'm funny even when I'm not. I love this part of you. Anyway, so, but we know structure determines function. So if we've got a really solid foundation, it means that that can never be taken away from us. And so it doesn't matter how many times your practice gets burnt down. And if you've been in this game for long enough, there's been lots of these, you know, there's been a global financial crisis and there's been other ones. And I was talking to Mark Postles the other day, and he's an old bugger, and he's been in practice since 1974. And he said this has happened 5 times in his lifetime. But he's not fazed because he knows that he can do it all again. So I know you can do it all again. So I know you've got this. So pop your coronas on, and it's time for you to go out and shine. That's me.